The desert winds of Zephyr swept across the planet's dusty plains, carrying with them a strange mixture of alien scents and the faint tang of metal from distant starships. Captain Elias Varick stepped out of his shuttle, his boots sinking slightly into the red sand. He had heard whispers about this place, rumors of auctions where rare human talents and artifacts were sold to the highest bidder. He had come only as an observer, nothing more. The auction hall lay a few miles away, a massive dome of shimmering metal and glass that seemed out of place on the barren landscape. Outside, a crowd of beings from across the galaxy had gathered. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4, and a few had shapes that Elias could not even name. The variety of species made him uneasy, but his curiosity outweighed his caution. Inside, the hall was vast and crowded. Bright lights reflected off the polished floors, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Strange devices beeped and clicked in the corners, registering bids from those too far to raise a hand. Elias moved slowly through the crowd, his eyes scanning every detail. There were cages with unusual creatures, tables displaying rare metals and devices that no human had ever seen before. Yet amidst all the wonders, Elias's attention was drawn to a single, hooded cage wheeled onto the stage. The cage was small, barely large enough for a person to sit comfortably. A heavy sack covered it, hiding whatever or whoever was inside. The announcer, a tall, thin alien with multiple eyes, raised his clawed hand and began speaking in a language Elias could barely understand. Translation devices in the hall hummed softly, converting the words into basic galactic standard English for him. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests of all species, the device's monotone voice said, today we present something rare, something extraordinary. Place your bids carefully, for what you see is unlike anything you have ever witnessed. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the words, about the way the audience leaned forward, made him tense. He had seen many strange things in his travels, but there was a weight to this moment that pressed on him like the heat of Zephyrs' sun. The auction began. Bidders raised their hands, their voices echoing through the hall. Aliens with long, jointed arms gestured, humans called out numbers, and strange machines sent electronic signals to register silent bids. Elias stayed quiet, observing. He had no intention of bidding. He was here to see, to understand. Then he noticed a subtle movement under the sack. A small hand shifted slightly, brushing against the bars of the cage. It was a human hand. His heart skipped. There had been rumors of a girl here, a human girl from the lost colony on the far side of the desert. Many had thought she was gone forever, lost to the harshness of Zephyr, and now it seemed she was here. The bids climbed higher. Aliens argued over the girl, her presence reduced to a mere object in their eyes. But Elias felt something else, a spark of recognition, a sense that this was no ordinary captive. He remembered the colony, remembered the stories of a girl who had survived when everyone else had perished. Could it be her? The announcer's voice rose, urging the crowd to bid faster. Then the moment came. With a slow, deliberate motion, the sack covering the cage was removed. Elias froze. Time seemed to stop. The girl looked out from the cage, her eyes wide but not frightened. There was a strength there, a determination that seemed impossible given her circumstances. Her hair was dusty, tangled from months or perhaps years of neglect. Her clothes were worn and torn, but her posture was proud. She lifted her chin, as if daring the entire hall to underestimate her. Elias dropped to his knees. The sight of her was more than he could bear. Memories of the lost colony flooded back. Days of sandstorms, nights of cold under Zephyr's 2 moons, the desperate struggle for survival. And here she was, alive, defiant, human in every sense that mattered. He could not move, could not speak. The world around him, the noise, the bidding, the alien faces, faded into a blur. All that existed was her, the last piece of humanity he had thought was gone forever. The girl noticed him in the crowd. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, relief, hope. Elias felt a surge of determination. He would not let her remain a prize in this auction. He would find a way to save her, somehow. The bidding continued, louder now, as though the crowd had sensed the tension. Elias's mind raced. He needed a plan. Simply confronting the auctioneers would not work. They were ruthless, and the hall was heavily guarded. He needed a strategy, allies, something to tip the scales in their favor. As he considered his options, he noticed other humans in the crowd, hidden among the aliens. Some looked scared, others curious. Perhaps they too had lost loved ones to the auctions. Perhaps they could help. Elias's heart swelled with hope. Humanity, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, could still rise together. Suddenly, a commotion broke out at the far end of the hall. An alien bidder had overstepped, arguing violently with another. The distraction was brief, but enough to give Elias an idea. He could use the chaos to get closer to the cage, to see the girl up close, to understand her abilities. He moved through the crowd cautiously, avoiding notice. Each step was measured, careful. The hall was a maze of metal and glass filled with creatures he had never seen before. Yet he pressed on. Finally, he reached the edge of the stage, close enough to see the girl clearly. She looked at him again, her expression steady. She was waiting, as if she knew he would come. Elias's mind worked quickly. The auction had rules, and even in this lawless place, there were ways to bend them. He would need to create a distraction, something dramatic enough to draw attention away from the cage. Perhaps he could trigger an alarm, or release a minor security device, anything that would give them a chance to escape. But for now, he simply watched. He memorized every detail, the girl's posture, the way she held her hands, the small glances she gave the audience. Every movement told him she was ready, that she had survived much worse than this. The auctioneer raised a claw, signaling the final call for bids. The room fell silent, waiting. Elias felt a tight knot in his chest. The highest bid would soon be accepted, and the girl's fate would be sealed. He could not let that happen. Not when humanity's last hope stared at him with those fierce, unyielding eyes. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. He would act, yes, but not recklessly. There was too much at stake. His training, his experience, his entire career had led him to this moment. The girl was not just a survivor. She was a symbol of what humanity could endure, of what humans could become even under the harshest conditions. The announcer's voice echoed again, louder this time, urging the bidders to finalize their offers. Elias's hands tightened into fists. He would not let greed, fear, or cruelty determine her future. The desert winds outside might have shaped Zyphor, but humans had shaped themselves to survive. And survival was not enough. Humanity deserved more. The girl's gaze met his one final time before the auctioneer prepared to drop the gavel. Elias whispered under his breath, almost as a promise, "Hold on. I'll get you out of this." The gavel came down. The crowd erupted in cheers and shouts. Elias moved. This was only the beginning. The first step of a long and dangerous journey had begun. And in that moment he understood one truth more clearly than ever. Humanity would not be a silent witness to its own suffering. Not while he still drew breath. The roar of the crowd faded into a dull hum as Elias Varick crouched behind a stack of metal crates near the stage. His mind raced. The auctioneer's gavel had fallen, marking the sale of the girl, but Elias would not let the transaction stand. Humanity's spirit could not be bought or sold like a piece of metal or a rare artifact. He had to act, and quickly. The girl, still seated in her cage, had not flinched. Her eyes met his, calm yet determined. Elias understood her unspoken message. She was ready to trust him, ready to fight, ready to survive. That trust strengthened his resolve. He surveyed the hall. Security drones hovered near the exits, their glowing sensors scanning the crowd. Guards, both human and alien, patrolled the floor, armed with strange, unfamiliar weapons. The room was crowded, chaotic, and dangerous, but Elias had faced worse, and now he was not alone. He whispered to himself, "Every system has a weakness. Every prison has a door." Elias crouched lower and edged closer to the stage. He noticed that the auction hall was divided into sections. The stage where the girl's cage rested was slightly raised. Around it, spectators pressed against the railings. Between the railings and the walls were narrow corridors where guards moved with caution. Elias's mind raced, calculating every step, every possibility. A sudden shout erupted at the far end of the hall. One of the alien bidders had attempted to cheat, and a brawl broke out. The guards rushed to contain the disturbance. Perfect. Elias saw his opportunity. He darted through the corridor, keeping low, moving silently. The clamor of the fight masked his approach. He reached the side of the stage and paused, watching the girl. She shifted slightly, her hands gripping the cage bars. Elias could see her thinking. her mind working as fast as his own. She understood the danger, but she also understood the plan. They were going to escape together. Elias tapped the small device strapped to his wrist. A faint electronic hum activated, sending a pulse to the cage's locking mechanism. The lock clicked once, then twice, but did not open. Elias cursed under his breath. The security systems here were more sophisticated than he expected. He needed more power, more time. He looked around. The auction hall had power conduits running along the ceiling, feeding energy to the lights and security systems. If he could disrupt the conduits, the locks might fail. But reaching them meant climbing the side of the stage, exposed to anyone watching. Elias inhaled deeply. Risk was part of being human. He would not shrink from it. With careful precision, he began scaling the stage. Dust and sand clung to his boots as he climbed, and the lights above reflected off the metal panels of the stage. The girl's eyes followed him, unwavering. She nodded slightly, encouraging him. Elias could almost hear her thoughts. Do not fail. We survived together. He reached the conduits. His hands worked quickly, disconnecting wires and rerouting energy. Sparks flew and a low hum filled the air. Then silence. The security drones wavered, their sensors flickering. A soft click echoed. The cage lock had disengaged. Elias smiled. It was working. He descended swiftly and reached the cage. We need to move, he whispered. The girl nodded. She was smaller than him, but her movements were agile and precise. Together they slid the cage doors open, careful not to alert the guards. Stay close to me, Elias instructed. The girl nodded again, stepping out with the grace of someone who had learned to survive against impossible odds. The hall erupted into confusion. The auctioneer shouted, demanding order, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Bidders and guards alike turned to see the girl moving freely, Elias at her side. Elias knew they could not simply run through the main exit. Drones and guards would catch them instantly. He spotted a service hatch near the rear of the stage, partially hidden behind equipment. It led to a narrow corridor, then to a maintenance shaft that could take them outside the dome. Follow me, Elias commanded, and the girl moved without hesitation. They slipped through the hatch and into the corridor. The air here was cooler, tinged with the scent of metal and oil. The faint sound of shouting echoed from the main hall, but they were already moving too quickly for the guards to follow immediately. As they crawled through the maintenance shaft, Elias felt a surge of admiration for the girl. Despite everything, loss, fear, isolation, she remained unbroken. Humanity's strength was evident in her every movement. She was living proof that humans could endure anything and rise stronger for it. The shaft led them to a side exit, partially hidden behind a stack of cargo containers outside the dome. Elias pushed the door open, and the harsh light of Zypher's twin suns washed over them. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, red and golden under the afternoon sky. For a moment they stopped to breathe, to feel the wind and the freedom it represented. We're not safe yet, Elias said, though his voice carried a note of relief. We need to reach my ship. The girl looked up at him, eyes bright. She nodded, understanding that survival was still a journey, not just a single act. Together they moved across the sand, blending with the shifting shadows and ridges. From the distance, guards began to emerge, alerted by the alarms that still sounded faintly in the auction hall. Elias scanned the desert, searching for a path that would give them the advantage. He spotted a rocky ridge a few hundred meters away, perfect for cover. They ran, careful but fast. Sand sprayed beneath their feet and the twin suns cast long, flickering shadows. The guards pursued, but Elias's knowledge of desert terrain gave him the edge. He led the girl through narrow canyons and behind massive stone outcroppings. Each step was calculated, each breath measured. Finally, they reached the landing area where Elias's shuttle waited. It was a sleek, compact ship, designed for speed and maneuverability rather than size. Elias opened the hatch and pulled the girl inside. She climbed in without hesitation, and he secured the doors. As the engines roared to life, the shuttle lifted off the sand. Below them, the auction hall became a small dot, chaos unfolding like a tiny storm. The desert winds of Zypher carried away the sound, leaving only silence and freedom. Inside the shuttle, Elias finally allowed himself a moment to speak. You did well, he said. Very well. I've never seen anyone survive like that. The girl looked at him, a faint smile touching her lips. I had to, she replied simply. I had no choice, Elias nodded. He understood. Humanity often had no choice, yet it persevered. In every corner of the galaxy, humans had faced impossible odds, and they had endured. This girl was no different. She was a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest times humans could shine brightly. The journey back to his ship's hidden base would be long and dangerous. There were still those who wanted the girl, those who would not rest until they reclaimed her. But Elias had a plan, and more importantly, he had the girl's trust. Together they could overcome any obstacle. As the shuttle glided over the desert plains, Elias looked at her. "We'll build something new," he said. "A place where humans can be safe. A place where we can survive and thrive." The girl nodded, looking out at the horizon where the twin suns began to set. The colors of the sky were brilliant, reds, oranges, and golds mixing with the deepening shadows. It was a reminder that even after the harshest days, light could return. Elias smiled, feeling hope stir in his chest. Humanity's story was far from over. As long as people like her existed, resilient, strong, unbroken, they would endure. They would rise no matter the odds. And in that moment, with the girl by his side and the stars waiting beyond Zypher's skies, Elias Varick understood the true meaning of courage, of survival, and of being human. They were free. And their journey had only just begun.